Hey, welcome in, everyone. This is maybe our first true postseason edition of College Football Coast to Coast, if you include the NFL. And no more football for a long, long time. So many of us are saddened by that. We got Pixie and Pete, of course, on the line for our 21st edition. How we doing on this Monday morning now into the afternoon?
Surprisingly enough, I feel great. I feel amazing and fantastic, Mark. Typically, the day after the Super Bowl is a day of mourning for the college football and NFL football season. For some reason, I don't know. I feel great today.
I feel great today, too. I do as well. Those things don't hit me as much as they did in years gone by. The life is a little bit more balanced away from football than it used to be. But certainly, I love football just as much as I always did. But doesn't quite hold the heart like it once did. But I don't like the thought of not seeing football for a long, long time. But hey, this is life and this is where we are. And I expected to see a much better game like the Vegas line told us it would be. And if anything, the Kansas City would win the game. And I'm going to say before I turn you loose that for 2 weeks, I had it in my mind that I was picking Kansas City to win. But when the gun was held to my head, because I just always have to make a Super Bowl prediction and have for, I hate to admit this, since 1980. 1980 was my first one. And then I'll give you my betting line and prediction record on this one a little bit later. But when my friend called me, a couple different friends, and said, what's the final prediction? About 15 minutes before kickoff, I pulled the trigger and said Tampa Bay is going to win this game. So that was my final. But I went 34-31, thought it would be a great game, but went with Tampa Bay.
I was right on one side of the coin and wrong on the other. I spent the last 2 weeks as well, Mark, saying that I believe that Kansas City will win the game. When it came down to betting on the game, I bet on Tampa Bay. My reasons behind that were two things here. Number one, it's extremely difficult for any team, no matter how great they are, to win back-to-back Super Bowls. The last time that was done by the Patriots in the early 2000s with Tom Brady. And the other thing is you never bet against Tom Brady in the postseason. And I also thought that the Bucs were sort of peaking at the right time. They had a lot of new pieces, the guys that hadn't played together before early in the season, and they got better as the season went on, and they were peaking in the playoffs. They won 3 road playoff games, which is unprecedented. And I just felt like that the Bucs were going to win this. Now, I did think it was going to be a high-scoring game. I was somewhere like 45-38 or 42-35, somewhere in that range. A lot of people were telling me this morning, at least what I was reading on Twitter, that it was a boring game. Even my wife said that. She said that, I was really hoping for a good game last night. I thought it was boring. I didn't find it boring at all, especially in an age and time, both in college football and in NFL football, where offense is king and it's an offensive league now. The defense can still win championships. And to shut down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City offense, the way that Tampa Bay's defense did, I enjoyed watching that just as a football fan. I also made the comment that for all the people out, the biggest news in the offseason is the Deshaun Watson's unhappy in Houston. He wants out. He's asking for a trade. And what you saw last night with Kansas City and Pat Mahomes running for his life on every single play is what's been going on in Houston for Deshaun Watson's 4 years that he's been there. And this is the reason he wants out of there. It has nothing to do with them not winning. It has the fact to do with his own health and safety. I mean, Patrick Mahomes last night looked like a deer in headlights, like he'd never seen a football before. And so that was a shocking thing. I mean, the Tampa Bay's defense, it's got to go down as one of the top 5 defenses in the past 20 years, right, Mark?
I would be right there with you. So I admire that you were able to take value out of that game, because I typically find myself being the guy that's sitting in the chair taking the calls after some 31-13 game in college football where everybody's saying that was a lousy game, that sucked. And I'm saying, well, I enjoyed this and I enjoyed A, B, and C. I'm the guy that says the game sucked, and you're the guy that took value out of it. So I admire that, because I wanted to see a close game and expected to see a close game. It really didn't cross my mind that this is going to be a 31-9 game. Of course, that can always happen. But as and this is in a situation where, based on my attachment or lack of attachment to the NFL these days, where I gave this game any thought whatsoever for the last 2 weeks. So it was simply, I think Kansas City is overall a better team. I'm gonna predict them to win. And then late in the game, I thought, okay, the two tackles are out, and Tampa Bay is really pouring it on. So I think trends are important in forecasting games, meaning you can't just look at it and say Kansas City was a better team over the course of the season. Tampa Bay's been hot. They were 7-5. They've been on a roll. They just beat who I think is the best player in the NFL in the NFC Championship game. They did it on, like you said, on the road. I'm going to nitpick and not say it was unprecedented, but I get your point. Yes, your point is well taken. It is unprecedented in context. It was done one other time by the New York Giants the year that they beat the Patriots the first time. But yes, it is an extremely difficult thing to do. I also believe the Steelers did it in 2005. I know they played the Bengals on the road. Then they went and played the Broncos on the road, and they played somebody else in the AFC Championship game that year, 2005. I'm not coming up with it. Anyway, it's extremely difficult to do. Tampa Bay pulled it off. Their adjustments that they make, because if you think about it, they could have lost to the Saints. They were down for as much as it felt like they rolled the Saints. They were losing by a touchdown in the second half of that game. Their defensive adjustments, they completely shut down the Saints in the second half. The Packers, for as great as they are on offense, they overcame 3 consecutive possessions where Brady threw a pick in that game. And then in this game, like you say, Pat Mahomes has been on a complete roll. 24-1 as a starter, like unheard of statistically in terms of their domination of what they've been doing the last couple years under him, going on 3 years. We could have been looking at a three-peat for Kansas City. They should have beaten the Patriots 2 years ago in the championship game. If Dee Ford wouldn't have lined up offsides on a Brady pick at the end of the game was over. The Chiefs are staring at dynasty kind of level stuff. Yeah. And to your point, in a day and age when everybody gains yardage and scores points, even when the defense is doing its job, to watch Tampa Bay's front seven take control of that game. And even downfield, their defensive backs, even when guys were open and Mahomes had a little bit of time to throw and deliver the ball, the DBs were breaking up passes.
I don't know if you can give a position group or one side of the ball an MVP. I guess you can't. I guess it's got.
I think you should.
You should. It should be. Hell, they should give it to the defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. Let's be serious about it. But the game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs was surprising to me. I'm surprised they didn't run the football more. Pat Mahomes threw the ball 49 times or 50 times, somewhere around there. And I realize when you get down, you have to throw the ball or whatever. But they were having some success running the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That Tampa Bay established the run early with Fournette, and that opened things up. Also, the other thing that confused me was the strategy on defense for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have 2 elite defensive backs in Tyrann Mathieu and Bashaud Breeland. They were bringing a lot of pressure and disrupting Brady in the first quarter, and Tampa Bay was having a hard time moving the football. The only real bright spot early in the game was Leonard Fournette. He was the only one that was able to move the football for Tampa Bay at all. And for some reason, they stopped bringing the pressure somewhere around the mid-second quarter, and that's when things started getting going. Now, I'm sure I'm ignorant, and there was adjustments made on Tampa Bay's side that caused them to stop bringing the pressure. But it seems to me that was the winning formula, was to run the ball and to bring pressure, and that was the formula that Tampa Bay used it to a massive amount of success throughout the entire game. If you would have bet, I don't know if you're a prop bet guy, Mark. I'm really not, unless it's like $10 for fun to bet on something. But the prop bet last night, if you would have bet that Kansas City wouldn't score a single touchdown in the game, was plus 25,000. So for all you people that don't know what that means if you bet $100 that Kansas City was not going to score a single touchdown, you would have won $25,000 off of that.
So it was plus 2,500.
Oh, somebody told me it was plus 25,000. So
well, if you're doing the math, if you look at the money line figure, it would be plus 2,500. Plus, then you add the zero for the $100 I might be wrong on that.
No, no. Yeah, you're definitely wrong. If it's plus 2,500, that's 2,500 on a $100 bet. Somebody told me it was plus 25,000 was the odds on that.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a ridiculous payout. That either way, basically, I doubt anybody was brave enough to actually put real money on that stat that Kansas City wouldn't score a single touchdown when they are the hottest offense in the league for the past at least 2 or 3 years. So
yeah, maybe somebody put through $10 on it, 1,2,500.
Maybe. Speaking of the prop bets, Mark, I'm embarrassed. I was live streaming the game last night.
Yeah.
And so as the game was coming on, I didn't research who was doing the halftime show. And so I asked the chat, I said, who's doing the halftime show tonight? And somebody typed in the chat, it's the Weeknd. Now, I'm embarrassed to say that I did not know who the Weeknd was. Now, once the halftime show came on, I didn't recognize the guy who's the Weeknd. I don't even know what his name is. I did not recognize the guy. I've never seen him before in my life. Now, I did recognize one of the songs that he sang. I must have heard it either in my car or on a commercial or something. I don't know. I did recognize one of the songs, but people were giving me a real rough time here, Mark. How do you not know who this guy is? He's one of the most famous artists in the world. I have no clue who this guy is, Mark.
I love this, Pete. I love it because I got somebody on my side on this one. So my kids are over a week or two ago. And when I say kids, I have to explain because I throw that term around and people think I got 10-year-old kids running around. They're 24 and 21. They come over this like 2 weekends ago. They're not even including me in the conversation. They pass a couple comments back and forth about the Super Bowl halftime. And they even say to me when I said, oh, who's it going to be this year? They go, you won't know who this is. And I said, who is it? And they go, The Weeknd. I said, yeah, you're right. I have no idea who that is. And so I'm like, is that an individual? Is that a group? What is that?
Yeah, it was a band. It sounds like a group of people, The Weeknd. Sure. It is. And it also sounds like a rock band name, So I was wrong on all accounts on that. And I caught hell. And I told my wife this morning, I said, do you know who The Weeknd is? She goes, oh yeah. He's one of the most famous. Haven't you ever heard blinded by the light or whatever? Blinding Lights. I'm like, no, I don't know what that is. I'm officially old, Mark.
Oh yeah, you've joined the club here. I've been old for a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, look, to be honest, I don't spend a whole lot of time listening to new music. New music. Yeah, but if you told me who the top 10 songs are or top 10 artists on the pop charts right now, I probably would know who 8 of them were.
So what might happen to you, Pete, is what happened to me. You know the new music when you're in high school, you're in college, yes. And then at whatever point you fade out of it. Yeah. And then you stick with whatever music you like. And there might be some songs that you get attached to that are current. But then what happens is your kids get to be, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old, something like, and then they control the radio in the car if you allow them to, which I did. I didn't care. And I'd let my daughter in particular control the radio. And so then from about her being about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old until 15, 16 years old, I'm listening to all the current stuff and I'm up on it for about 7, 8 years.
That's even more embarrassing though, because I have my oldest son's 13.
Okay.
So I don't have an excuse. Like he knows who The Weeknd is and he knows who all these new people are. But I guess if I let him control the radio in the car, which I normally don't, I normally listen to what I want to listen to. I'm selfish that way. But if I do let him listen to it, I think I just tune out with whatever he's listening to. Yeah. I don't really listen to it. So it's even more embarrassing that I have young children and young teenagers and still don't know who these people are.
Well, you tune it out for 2 reasons. Number one, most of it's pretty awful. Number two, they play the same songs over and over and over and over and over, the same stuff constantly. Some of my favorite halftime Super Bowl memories or stories would be talking about prop bets. I've got a buddy who's really big in the music field. Not that he's a big star, but he's big into it. I'll phrase it that way so it's correct. But in terms of prop bets, there was a I forget who the artist was. I want to say it was Madonna, but that just seems too mainstream. It might have been somebody else. Anyway, sometime in the last 15 years, where he told me that he had some inside information on a prop bet because he caught some video online of that individual. There was a prop bet as to whether that individual, this is how ridiculous it gets, would wear a headset for the halftime show or not wear a headset.
Right.
And he saw them rehearsing on video. And so he thought for sure they're going to wear a headset because they got a headset on while they're rehearsing. Well, he got burned and lost.
Well, during one of the prop bets that I almost bet on, but I felt like a dirty old man for doing it. You could bet on everything. Yeah. One of them was whoever. See, and this is another thing. The girl who sung the national anthem, I don't know who she is either, but apparently she's really famous. But anyway, the prop bet was whatever outfit she's wearing, will she show cleavage? Now, I think probably 9 times out of 10, a pop star, a singer, or whatever, whether it's a halftime show or a national anthem, or is going to wear something a little bit revealing.
Yeah.
And so I think that would have been a safe bet. I don't think it paid out well. I think it might have been like minus 110 if you say yes. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, I did pay attention to that because of the prop bet, and she did indeed show cleavage. But I wish I didn't bet it though. It seems like kind of a weird thing to bet on to me.
It's a weird thing to bet on. Plus, it's also that there could be some kind of fine line of it being debated. Did we? If it,
yeah, I don't think there was any doubt on this one.
Any doubt about it? Yeah. Okay. The other one that comes to mind is I think this was Steelers Cardinals Super Bowl 12, 13 years ago. My son was about 10, 11 years old. Halftime show comes on, and my son was late to the NFL, didn't care about it. This was the first Super Bowl he was into. Bruce Springsteen comes on. My son started just howling, just thought it was like a joke, like this guy is some old man. This is a joke. He thought it was like a joke. He thought it was so bad, so horrible. Now he appreciates Springsteen, but his first reaction to Springsteen was like, this is awful music. This must be like a joke.
Yeah. So it's definitely a generational thing.
Yeah.
They think our music's terrible. We think their music is terrible. It's the cycle. It's the cycle of life, Mark.
It is. Music's an interesting thing. I only know one person. I only have one person in my life that doesn't like music. It's one of my best friends. He
doesn't like music.
Doesn't listen to it. Doesn't like it.
Wow. I've never heard of anybody like that.
Yeah. That's my kids' reaction all the time. They're like, that's weird.
It is kind of weird. I'm not going to lie.
He doesn't listen to music.
That's pretty weird.
Doesn't like it.
I mean, you would think that he has 0 songs that he likes. I mean, you would think he'd like something.
I think there's been 2 or 3 songs over the course of his life that he, for a day or two, thought, okay, I could listen to that, but has never purchased music, nothing. Has none in his house.
In true 2021 fashion, we had a streaker last night.
Yes.
In the Super Bowl. Now, they did a pretty good job of not showing it on the live broadcast, but there was a lot of other people that posted the video. Have you seen any of the videos of this guy?
I did not. No.
He wasn't nude. He had on some underwear, I think, and his the top half of his body was painted, and he had a bra on. But that wasn't the funny part. The funny part was he ran right through the teams were lining up to have the play. He runs right through the middle of the team. They all just look at him, and he runs through, and then all the police and all the security come converging to try to catch him. He's acting like he's running to get a touchdown, and they are defensive players. So he starts doing spin moves, and he gets away. He gets through the first line of them. And then they chase him down and meet him at the goal line, converging from all angles. And during that time, he had pulled the rear end of his underwear down, where you could just see his rear end. He wasn't totally nude, but he gets to the goal line, and his goal is to get over the goal line. So he sees it's not going to happen. So he does the old the baseball slide, like he's sliding into second base, and he makes it. And they all converge on top of him. It was actually pretty, streakers are looking for attention and know they're going to jail, but it was actually a pretty entertaining one because he was pretending like he was a football player, basically.
And he thought he was giving himself up there at the end. He thought, these guys can't hit me now because under the rules, they've got to lay off of me.
And Benji Holland in the chat here says apparently that guy was dared by a famous YouTuber or something. I did not.
Was that you?
No, it certainly wasn't me. I don't know who this gentleman was. This fine gentleman.
Famous YouTuber, you instantly come to mind.
Yeah, I wonder what the fine for that is, and what what the penalty is in court. It'd be interesting to know that. He probably could raise enough money on YouTube to pay for his court fees or whatever it is. Speaking of YouTubers and the Super Bowl, did you know? Speaking of the weekend, that he got famous on YouTube. That's how he got started.
Kind of like Justin Bieber did.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah. Same thing. Which is crazy. I should have known about him more since I'm on YouTube a lot, but I'd never seen him before.
So with the streaker hitting the field, I was a little bit slow to Twitter because I hadn't touched Twitter all night. I'm just sitting there watching the game. So I grabbed my laptop real quick because it instantly brought to mind something that I knew was going to fly past 98% of the people that follow me on Twitter. But Baltimore Colts linebacker Mike Curtis actually just passed away in the last year, going back to the 60s and 70s. He there's a NFL films where they show him streaker. It wasn't even a streaker, just a dude runs out onto the field, steals the football. They're in a timeout, runs across the field, grabs the football, starts running with it. And Mike Curtis was kind of like one of these old school, cowboy, law enforcement, we don't put up with anything. And he instantly was able to cut this dude off and just clothesline, just decked him, just threw this dude on his back like that. And I was looking for a GIF on Mike Curtis, but I couldn't find it. So I found a picture and posted it.
I'm sure you could probably go on YouTube and see a compilation of the best streakers in history. There's been a bunch of them in Super Bowls, a World Series. I know there's been several. I think I think I have searched this before with one of the last times it happened, and most of them tend to come in Europe in soccer or football, whatever they call it over there. It seems to be very commonplace in the game of football in Europe for these guys that are obviously hammered drunk to go streaking, and they do it right, Mark. They don't do it like the guy did last night. They go full Monty nude, and they go for the gusto, and they usually end up getting hurt in some way, shape, or form, whether they twist an ankle or they get beat up by the police.
Yeah, it's never going to end well. So,
no, it's never going to end well.
I hope for anybody that goes out there and does that they are hammered, because that's at least an excuse for the stupidity. Otherwise, it's what are you doing?
The best part of last night, though, was that when he does the slide for the goal line and he sticks his hands up in the air like he did score a touchdown, and there's literally 6 or 7 people that just jump on top of him all at once and just it's like they treat the guy like he robbed a bank or something,
That is great. All right, this is College Football Coast to Coast. Pigskin Pete and myself come your way each and every week. And for the time being, we're here at my channel, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. This is our 21st edition. We hope that you will make this an appointment every Monday at noon Eastern time, because it's obviously more fun when it's live, but you can catch the replay as well. Jump in the live chat, leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics, anything you'd like Pigskin and I to discuss. And also keep in mind that we would love to have a sponsor. Our channels, our shows, everything we do is supported by you, whether that's through individual contributions or through sponsorship. So hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail if you've got a good angle. And I mean a substantial angle, not just, hey, why don't you guys go grab Nike and have them on? Yeah, I got it. If you have anything of substance, bring it to the table, MarkRogersTV at Gmail. All right. In regards to making any kind of connections between college football and the Super Bowl, Pete, this is what I came up with last night. There's 8 minutes left in the game. Okay, it's all a done deal. So I go online and I'm thinking, okay, let me gather up some rosters and see what we got here. So here are my findings. The first category I don't find to be very meaningful, but here's what it's worth. LSU had the most players on the 2 rosters last night with 6. Clemson and Michigan had 5. Iowa, Penn State 4. Then we got South Carolina, Texas A&M, Minnesota, Nebraska, Mississippi State with 3.
How many? LSU had how many?
6.
And Clemson had 5, you said?
Clemson, Michigan, 5.
Clemson and Michigan 5. So I can only name 4 for Clemson. I know that, well, 4 starters. That's probably why I don't know the 5th one. It must be a guy, a second string guy. But 4 starters for sure. There was 1 on Tampa Bay, Bradley Pinion, the punter, Bashad Breeland, the defensive back for Kansas City, Dorian O'Daniel, the linebacker for Kansas City, and of course Sammy Watkins, the wide receiver for Kansas City.
So that's the deal. This is kind of, I would guess that it would be difficult to find any 2 teams in the NFL that you would put together for a game and be able to result with this statistic. There were no Alabama or Ohio State players on the active roster of either team.
I did know that. That's a pretty shocking stat, Mark. This is even more shocking. I need you or somebody in the chat here to help me verify if this is true or not. I believe the person that told me this or on Twitter is a reputable person, so I believe them when they say this, but this is a shocking stat. Alabama has never had a quarterback or a running back ever score a single point in any Super Bowl at any point. Now, the first name that came to mind for me, Mark, was Joe Namath. Wasn't he an Alabama quarterback?
You know what's odd about the statistic that you just gave? I can't verify it, but this is what would be so odd about that. Do you realize that the first 3 Super Bowl MVPs are Alabama players? The first 3. Bart Starr 1 and 2, Joe Namath 3. They're all quarterbacks. They threw touchdowns.
So it's not a true stat then.
Well, they threw touchdowns. They didn't. There's probably the technicality there is that you had to score the touchdown.
I got you.
Yeah, well, they threw touchdowns. Actually, Namath won a Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 3 without scoring a touchdown, throwing for a touchdown.
And that's what I said. I said, "Well, what about Joe Namath?" And I didn't get a response. But
yeah, no touchdowns for Namath. Bart Starr threw 4, at least 4, maybe 4 or 5.
Even if you remove the quarterback from the argument, the running back part, never been an Alabama running back ever score. I mean, they've had how many Heisman Trophy winning running backs has Alabama had?
Well, just the last
decade. Yeah.
They're both in the last decade. Alabama did not have a Heisman Trophy winner until Mark Ingram. They had 0.
Well.
So Derrick Henry's not been to the Super Bowl. Ingram's been there with the Saints, but he obviously apparently did not score.
Yeah. I guess he didn't. No.
Julio Jones played against the Patriots, but just one time.
That was the other part of it. Well, wide receiver also. Let me pull this tweet up here.
Ozzie Newsome was a great player with the Cleveland Browns, but never touched the Super Bowl. He's in the Hall of Fame, but he never made it to the Super Bowl.
I screwed that stat up. It might have said wide receiver and running back.
Yeah. Quarterbacks have thrown touchdowns for Alabama because you've got, and then you also have Kenny Stabler, Oakland Raiders, Super Bowl 11. He was the MVP. No, he was not the MVP. Fred Biletnikoff, Florida State, was the MVP. That one. So just to please some Alabama fans who are probably yelling at me right now, O.J. Howard was on a roster last night on injured reserve for Tampa Bay.
He didn't play.
On the active roster, no Alabama, Ohio State players.
Yeah, he didn't dress, did he?
No. And then here's the tote board, Pete, for the conferences represented last night. Now, this is pretty stark. I would think that it would be more even than this. And again, this doesn't say a whole lot. This is 2 teams out of 32 in the NFL. SEC 26, Big 10 23, ACC 13, Pac-12 9, Big 12 5 players. 5 players out of 2 rosters out of the whole conference.
That is shocking.
When the SEC and the Big 10 are 26 and 23, the Big 12 at 5, I could only find 5 players.
You know, Brett Bielema tweeted out something. Let me see if I can find this tweet. And I found, here it is. And this is clearly a recruiting thing or a motivational thing. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, well, I don't, but I know where you're headed. That type of tweet. Yeah.
Okay. So Brett Bielema tweets out, "It's amazing that you never read about this on National Signing Day." Of course, he's trying to get people to sign. "Important to remember long-term development and teaching win out in the end with talent as a baseline." And here's the stat that he's tweeting out.
Okay.
The Super Bowl has one player that was in the ESPN 5-star as a high school recruit, Leonard Fournette. Kansas City has 12 4-stars. Tampa Bay has 8. Kansas City has 10 3-stars. Tampa Bay has 12. Kansas City has 19 players below a 3-star. Tampa Bay has 22. That's 63 players rated 3-star or worse in the Super Bowl. Now that all sounds great. Okay, if you're giving a pitch to a 3-star kid who you want to sign for your team. But this is simple math, Mark. There's only 20-something 5-stars every year.
Yeah.
And how many hundreds of 3-stars are there throughout the country? So, yeah, the ratio of busts from a 5-star to a 3-star, I'd say there's more 3-star busts than 5-star busts in the NFL. It's just there's way fewer 5-stars. So that it's just it's kind of a word salad. It's a misleading stat. Right.
It seems impressive. It seems like it wouldn't be the fact, but like you say, when you only have, I think depending on your service, you're somewhere between 25 and 45 stars each season. So that is very few. You're spreading your and when Alabama signs 5 of them and Ohio State signs 4, and then they're on about 6 teams,
right?
And yeah, there's only, so they can't get to, but I also, it depends again. You're completely right how you skew the numbers, because I've also seen charts where they showed the probability of 5 stars reaching the NFL, 4 stars reaching the NFL, and 3 stars reaching the NFL. And as you would imagine, it goes 5 stars and then it goes 4 stars, 3 stars, and it drops because there's a zillion 3-stars out there. The most of the college football rosters are filled with 3-star players, and they can become really good players. Yeah, we see them in the Super Bowl, but there's a zillion of them.
And then again, I mentioned this last night on my show, and you get the people, they'll pick a player that plays for their team who is a low rated guy and go, well, what if, like Mac Jones was a 3-star, and I go, that's great, Mac Jones is a 3-star. Alabama's team is 90% 5-stars. the teams that get to the playoffs every year: Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia. I mean, like you said, there's 5 or 6 teams that they have the most 5-stars on their teams, and they win the most games, and they win the biggest games. So to pretend as if stars don't matter, I get it. There's a bunch of guys that go overlooked. Clemson's had a ton of them, 3-star guys that have turned out great to play for both Clemson and in the NFL. But let's be real here. Stars do matter, folks. Now, I don't think there's a huge difference personally between most 4-stars and 5-stars. I think it's pretty a razor thin margin there when you're talking about high school kids and how talented they are. Some guys are just clearly great, like Trevor Lawrence, clearly great in high school, right? They said, a lot of people said he could have got drafted into the NFL out of high school. That's just how talented he was. But some of these other 5-star guys, like if you give them a 4-star rating, not really much of a difference. And then when you go from the 4-star to the 3-star, I don't see much of a lot of these guys that are 3-stars could easily be 4-stars. So it's a very razor thin margin from 3 to 5-star, except for the exception of maybe a dozen or so guys every single year that really, really stand out.
I'm not qualified or have done the research to push back on that. I'll hit it from this angle, which seemed to be a little contradictory, I guess, depending on how you look at it. In addition to Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia, I would take those 4 schools hogging up almost all the 5-stars. That if you go to any of the top 300 lists, that seems to be the number that like 247 Sports and ESPN like to work with. They're still at the 4-star level when you get to 300. So I don't know how far that keeps going. So there are 400 or 500 4-stars in addition to just the 35 or 45 stars. So here's my thought, Pete, is that the 3 or 4 schools we just mentioned would be gathering up most of the high 4-stars.
Yes.
Because as I say, if you go to the 300th player, you're still in the 4-star range. It keeps going from there. And then even at the 3-star range, that 3-star pool is thousands of players, and the Clemsons and Ohio States are getting the high-end 3-star guys.
Yeah. So you're right. There is tiers to the star level, to the star thing. You're right. And Joel Tilson here in the chat. Let's see if this is the one I was looking for. He says 5, 4, 3 stars doesn't work if the coaches don't get the most out of it. Now that's common sense, obviously. But here's the thing, though: 5, 4, 3, 5 stars, 4 stars, especially, and some 3 stars. They're being recruited by the best coaches in the country who have a winning pedigree. So they know that most of them know that they're going to a place where they can be developed. That's the reason that they sign with the schools that they sign. I've said this before, Mark. It's not a secret. Almost every player, especially if you're a highly rated player out of high school, 5-star or 4-star guy, yeah, you want to go to a school and have a great experience. Yeah, it's all great to say, well, I want to go there and get a great education and a degree. And that and there is a lot to be said for that. A lot of these kids that they really do value that. But most of them have aspirations and dreams of making it into the NFL. They sign with the school that can make that happen, that can develop them and market them for draft day once they decide to come out. And there's only this is the gap that we're seeing now in college football that a lot of people don't like, Mark. But it's a natural progression of the game and the way that it's set up. But there's maybe 10 teams. Is that fair, Mark? 10 to 12 teams that are putting the vast majority of players in the NFL at this point.
That would be an interesting.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe it's more than 10. Well, just by the numbers, I guess it would have to be more than 10 because there's a cup over 200 people drafted every year, and even the highest team's only getting 5 or 6 guys. Right? Alabama's only getting 5 or 6 guys a year in, and then that same with Clemson, same with Ohio State.
Yeah. I think we're a little higher than that.
Yeah,
Ohio State had 10 last year. I know they've had 13, 14.
That's not every year, though. They're not putting 10 guys in the league every year. Last year they did. That's an awful lot.
It is a lot. I know that they've been higher, though.
Yeah,
I know Ohio State and Alabama have both been north of 10 a number of times.
Sure.
But you're right. Yeah, on average, they'll have their 3s and 4s as well. What was I going to get to before? So I'll address Ronan's comment just because I love NFL history. And so, Ronan, what you're thinking of is the NFL championship game prior to the Super Bowl, the Ice Bowl, where Bart Starr had the famous plunge from the 1-yard line against the Dallas Cowboys, the Ice Bowl, the 1967 NFL championship game. So there was an overlap between NFL championship games and Super Bowls. So you just had the NFL championship game, then you had this startup league, the AFL in 1960, and they played separate championships. And then the NFL championship was still being played for the first 4 Super Bowls, but that led to the team then entering the Super Bowl, and then the 2 leagues merged. You got your NFC, AFC starting in 1970.
Yes. I see a comment here from Aaron Short, who's an Alabama fan. He's frequent over on my channel as well. He has a comment here about Mac Jones, and this is something I've been hearing a lot about Mac Jones, Mark. Mac Jones will do great in the NFL. Here's the comparison that I keep hearing, and especially I heard this last night on my show. Mac Jones, Tom Brady 2.0. They have a lot in common. And the insinuation that Mac Jones will have the career that Tom Brady has because they're similar. I would say this. I do see the comparison between the two. They have a similar stature. They have a similar playing style. They're both cerebral football players, not really run around guys. They're pocket passers. I get all of that. I see the comparison. Having said that, Mac Jones is not going to go in the 6th round like Tom Brady did. If you saw what Tom Brady looked like when he was coming into the draft, but Mac Jones physically is miles ahead of what Tom Brady looked like physically, and probably with his arm as well. I think he probably has a better arm than Tom Brady does. So I don't see the comparison in that regard. It's Tom Brady hasn't done what he's done and become the greatest of all time because he's a great athlete. He's the smartest guy on the football field every time he steps on the football field. He's the most prepared quarterback on the football field every time he steps on the football field. If Mac Jones can replicate that, then maybe he can have half of this career that Tom Brady's had. But using Tom Brady as a benchmark for any football player coming out of college is a fool's errand, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and when you say half, you're being kind.
I'm being kind.
If anybody accomplishes half of what Tom Brady accomplishes, they're in the Hall of Fame.
Right. An eighth.
An eighth of it. Yes.
If you win one Super Bowl, you're almost guaranteed as a quarterback to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He now has 7.
Yeah. If you win a Super Bowl and you're statistically good, you're one of the better quarterbacks in the league. You're not Brad Johnson or Trent Dilfer, and you win a Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. So having said that, Aaron, I believe that Mac Jones is certainly an NFL caliber quarterback, especially, I mean, look around the league, man. There's 8 or 9 teams, which is a third of the league, basically, that is looking for a franchise quarterback right now, whether they're trading with each other for another guy, or they're looking for them in the draft. This is going to be an extreme. Are you a big draft guy, Mark? Do you like the draft?
So here's the deal with the draft is that I don't prepare for the draft. Like, I've got a buddy who would come over to my house, or I would go to his house. This dude is he's a pilot. So he would go to the nth degree and fly me to his house. Like, I'm talking about flying from like Connecticut to Atlanta to watch the draft all weekend. And he would bring out like a foot full of draft information and research. Like I'm not like that. I would like to watch the draft because the obvious connection between college and the NFL, and I like both games, but I don't like studying. Yeah. I don't like anything where most of your research is out the door the day it happens. Yeah. Like 95% of what you just read is out the door because the guy can only get picked by one team. So why not just wait until that day?
Yeah. The mock draft thing, I never really understood because everybody has a different mock draft, and I don't really know. I'd be willing to guess that even the guys that get paid to do these drafts, like whether it's Mel Kiper or what's the other guy, Todd McShay. Those two guys, how often have they got every player in the first round, right? And once you get one wrong, then that means another one's wrong. It's a domino effect. So it's impossible to predict the draft, and it's just, I guess it's entertaining for people. It's sort of like people that really follow recruiting in college football closely. Like, the reason I don't follow recruiting, I mean, I know a couple of high profile guys. Like, I knew about DJ Uiagalelei, 2 years ago, and because he was such a great player and everybody in the country wanted him. Outside of that, like, following these guys and hoping they're coming to your school for 2 years just for them to tell you that they committed and then they decommit 3 weeks later, like, it's a total waste of my time as far as I'm concerned. And so the draft is the same way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have the time. I get asked about that all the time, and I'm sure you do too. Asked about, okay, it was just National Signing Day. Mark, what do you think of this person and that person and this person and that person? And I will tell people flat out, and I just did this last night, I do not watch one single play of any high school football, whether that be on a huddle reel or just watching high school games. I just don't watch it. I don't get involved in it just because it's just not worth my time. I got to do what I try to do at the collegiate level, and I'll bring on other people to talk about recruiting.
There's no doubt in my mind that you don't have time to follow recruiting. I mean, I have never seen a guy put more energy and effort into covering all of college football than you do. So kudos to you for that. I can barely keep up with one team. You're out there doing shows for, TCU, Iowa State, and everybody, man. It's really unbelievable what you've been able to do, and the amount of people that you get on. I mean, you must just sit around all day just reaching out to people, and for anybody who doesn't know, who doesn't run a YouTube channel, I have been lucky enough to do collaborations with maybe a dozen people over the past 3 years. It is not easy. Most people that you contact and say, hey, would you like to come on and talk about this subject or that subject? Most people will either not respond or say, or just tell you no. So the fact that you get that many people on is a minor miracle, and it's a testament to your fortitude and your dedication to the game and to the YouTube channel.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'm sure you get hit with questions like this. And I'm actually going to call him out just because I hope he understands that I'm just using his name because he's a great viewer of both your streams, I believe, and mine. Is Michael Hogue. Like, he will come at me with questions. Like a couple of weeks ago, he's asking me to analyze the Marshall defense. And I'm like, well, yeah.
I just, if he asked me that, I would just say, no, I'm not doing that.
I'm like,
I make myself look like an idiot.
Michael, first of all, you got to understand, I watch as much football as I possibly can, but I'm watching the big games, the big teams. I don't watch Marshall play. They play in a bowl game. Yeah, I'm watching them, but I'm not sitting there taking notes thinking I need to analyze their defense.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff's just impossible to know everything.
Yeah. Ronan Jones says, is Brady the best athlete, most talented player, or even the best quarterback in the NFL? No.
I was going to get to this.
Yes.
So that was the big debate after the game was, okay, you've got, to me, 3 levels of GOAT status that you can make the discussion with Brady. The number one would be, okay, greatest quarterback of all time, greatest football player of all time, greatest team athlete of all time.
I'd say yes, yes, and yes. Right? I mean, I don't even understand why this is a debate anymore about whether he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't get the argument. I understand, and the reasons that I see people say he's not is because, oh well, Deflategate, oh well, Spygate, or whatever gate you want to talk about when he was with New England. Look, first of all, Spygate has nothing to do with the quarterback, the play on the field, nothing. The deflated football thing, whatever. Whether it's true or not, I couldn't throw a deflated football as good as Tom Brady could. And I don't really think that has anything to do. Tom Brady does not have an elite NFL arm, never has. It's not straight. I mean, it's above average, I guess I would say, but elite, no. I mean, does he have anything close to what Mahomes has as an arm? No. Arm talent, no. It's all here. It's all here, and it's all preparation. Like I said before, he's the hardest working guy in the NFL when it comes to preparing for the game and applying that. And the non-tangible factor of just being a winner and refusing to lose and motivating the guys around him to be great. That's something you can't teach. It's immeasurable. And he has it better than anybody that's ever played. Clearly.
Yeah, I can't in any way argue against him being the greatest of all time. I did for a long time. I still don't know if he plays the position better than anyone ever has. I think he's been in good situations, and because of the accomplishments, you just can't debate it, depending on how you phrase that greatest of all time. He shouldn't have been the MVP last night. How is
no,
not the MVP?
I agree with you there. He shouldn't have been the MVP.
He threw for 200 yards.
Listen, the guy, the question was always, who's the genius? Is it Brady or Belichick? Brady, I can go ahead and tell you, before Brady got to New England, they weren't very good. Yeah, they were okay. As soon as he became the starter, they started winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, became a dynasty. By the way, the entire time he was at New England, outside of Randy Moss being there for 2 years, whatever that was.
Yeah.
He made stars out of average receivers. They never had what he has now in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans. Now, Rob Gronkowski, I guess you could, if you want to put him as a receiver, that certainly was one of his big guys in New England. But he had a rotating door of average to slightly above average wide receivers, average to slightly above average running backs. He was lucky enough to have a couple of seasons or, maybe multiple seasons there in New England where they had elite defenses, especially early on. It was all-time great defenses in his first 2 or 3 Super Bowls that he won. But the one constant on that team was Tom Brady. Tom Brady leaves, goes to Tampa Bay. Now, granted, they pulled out all the stops and rolled out the red carpet for this guy. I mean, they went and built one hell of a roster. I mean, yes. An all-star NFL team is what Tampa Bay's team looks like. So that does matter. And he even said prior to yesterday's game, this is the most talented team from top to bottom that I've ever played on. So that there is something to be said for that. But you still have to go out there and win the games. and he just does it year after year for 20 years. There has not been another quarterback. You could say Joe Montana's great. You could say John Elway's great. There's a whole list of guys. They didn't win that consistently. Not like Tom Brady has done. It is what it is.
In terms of a record, in terms of regular season record, I can only think of two guys I can think of three guys, maybe four. Okay, I'm going Joe Montana, Roger Staubach, Kenny Stabler, Terry Bradshaw that won in terms of a winning percentage, but they just didn't, like Staubach just didn't play. Staubach didn't become a starter until he was 29 years old because he had a Naval Service Academy commitment, and it was a different game, but he won, like he was in championship games like every year in his career. But what Brady's accomplished, it's just like, I think Rodgers plays the position a little bit better.
Yeah, so this is the debate with like I was talking about with Patrick Mahomes with the arm talent. I mean, Rodgers clearly a freakish quarterback with the arm. Same with Mahomes. There's only been
mobility.
Yeah, and mobility too. Yeah, he's got things that Tom Brady doesn't have. But it just seems to me like, I don't know. It's always people making excuses for why Tom Brady's not the greatest.
You're right. You're right.
At some point, you have to recognize, like, if Tom Brady was on the Packers, let's switch the two guys.
Yep.
Put Aaron Rodgers in New England over the past 10 years. And switch the guy. What would the outcome be? And I think at this point, yeah, I agree with you. Aaron Rodgers is more physically gifted, and he's one of the all-time greats as well. But would he have won more Super Bowls in New England than Tom Brady did? I doubt it.
So here's one thing I'm going to say about an advantage that Tom Brady had during this entire time.
Yeah.
Was go to any division, go from the time that the dominance started in 2001 all the way through to the end last season with New England. Go to any division in the NFL, and they all had their ups and downs. Even the NFC East, which has been atrocious for about 5 years, was really strong at one time. Every division would have had teams that would have given him a serious challenge.
Yes.
North, Ravens, Steelers. Every division, you can go to the division has been awful, and what that did for him was elevated them to the second round of the playoffs every year.
So you're hitting me right in the heart with college football with your statement there. This is the Clemson argument. Clemson plays in the ACC. They're lucky. It's a cakewalk to the playoffs. So, but then when Clemson goes out there and wins, they're 6-4 in the playoffs. They're 2-1 against Alabama in national championship games. They blow them out 44-16. It's they're lucky they shouldn't even be there, right? Because they play in the ACC. So this is the same argument you're saying, and there is something to be said for that. That the AFC. The division they played in was weak for the majority of the 20 years, but
for the entire time, they were all bad.
Won all the big, like they did what I was just talking about, what Clemson was doing, even better than Clemson's been doing it, quite frankly. But they won the playoff games, they won the AFC championship games, and then they won the Super Bowl. They won the big ones. That's all that matters.
And they played almost all of them at home,
right? Well,
like if you look at their home road splits over the 20 years that Brady was there, they hardly ever had to play on the road. So, now, part of that's to their credit that they had a 14-2 record or 13-3 or whatever it was. And that was built outside the division as well. It's not like you just play in your division. But still, it was the Dolphins, Bills, and Jets that entire time, except for the Jets under Rex Ryan for 2 years being pretty good and getting to AFC championship games. Those three franchises were horrible the whole time.
But they did. I mean, they won the vast majority of their games that they played out of their division as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we just saw what they just did this year. Not the Patriots, but Tom Brady winning 3 road games. So you were talking about how they almost always had home playoff games in New England. But they went on the road. He went on the road 3 times this playoffs and won all of them. So, I don't know. To me, there's not much of again, see, this is nitpicking, making excuses. You're doing it right now.
I don't know how much he had to. When I look at what he put on the field in those 3 playoff games and the postseason games, it was good. It wasn't.
Well, just ask yourself this one question, Mark. Take every single player on Tampa Bay that's on Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Take Tom Brady out of the picture.
Yeah.
This
who
year.
are you giving me?
Super Bowl without Tom Brady? The answer is no. I'll go ahead.
Well, it depends on who do you give me? Do you give me Aaron Rodgers?
Well, no. I mean, who was their quarterback before him?
Jameis Winston.
Winston. Did they win it with Jameis Winston?
No.
Let's say they
I'm not saying he's not an all-time great quarterback. I'm just saying that there are some things in play that have helped him. There are things that he had no control over that he lucked into. And I'm going to use the word lucked into. Now, he had to be in position, but 2 years ago in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, he threw an interception that lost the game. But Dee Ford was lined up offsides, and so he got a second chance. He threw an interception that blew the game, that lost the game. Game's over.
Yeah.
He had another one, the Super Bowl against Seattle. Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, they're at the goal line. They're ready to win the game. What do? They throw a stupid slant pass when they should have just given the ball to Marshawn Lynch and won the Super Bowl.
Every you can say bad play calls in every game and penalties this, penalties that. The bottom line is
that's where he had nothing to do with.
Constant over the past 20 years is that Tom Brady wins everything. I mean, you can name any excuse you want to. It just is what it is.
Well, he won everything, but he won
you know what I mean.
7 in 20 years.
Yeah, which is never been
a phenomenal feat, and I will not take that away from him. I'm just bringing some points to light that he's been very fortunate in certain instances.
And by the way, I want to say that I'm not a Tom Brady hater. I'm not a huge Tom Brady fan either. I'm neutral on the subject. So I'm not defending Tom Brady because I love Tom Brady or I could care less. I'm just saying I know what my eyes have been telling me over the past 20 years. That's all.
Yeah, and I 90% agree with you. I'm bringing to light some instances in which I thought he was extremely fortunate.
Sure.
I only left this comment on the screen because I like correcting things like Benji Holland, who said he was drafted 507. It was actually 199. There's only about 250 players drafted each year.
Yeah. I see Doug Arby in the chat here says, I wonder if Trevor Lawrence will be a bust. That would be hilarious. So Doug Arby is one of these people that likes to root for people to fail in life, which is pretty damn sad, sir. I as much hell as I give Alabama fans and Ohio State, I don't wish Mac Jones to fail. I don't wish Justin Fields to fail. I hope they do great. So the fact that you are rooting for this young man to fail says more about you than it does about your comment or Trevor Lawrence. And by the way, I'll be willing to bet you $100 right now, Doug, that he won't be a bust. How about that? But you won't do that.
Yeah. I'm expecting good things for Trevor Lawrence.
So before we get off here, it's after 1 o'clock now. But before we get off, I would like to get your honest thoughts on this the Urban Meyer, you being an Ohio State guy, the Urban Meyer marriage with the Jaguars. I tend to think this is another thing that I think gets taken out of context a lot is people talk about, he's not going to do well at the Jaguars. He's not an NFL coach. He's a college coach. Well, he's a football coach, right? And the best head football coaches in the NFL are not necessarily calling the plays or not X's and O's guys. It's who do you build around you? Who are the coordinators? Who do you surround yourself with? And how good do you manage a bunch of how many people are on an NFL roster, Mark? 80? What is
53.
it? 53. How do you manage 53 millionaires, adult men? That's the key to this whole thing. And more importantly, drafting and managing free agency. It's much different than college football. Obviously, you're not recruiting. You're not going out and picking the players that you want necessarily and getting them to sign at your school. All right, there's a process to make it fair. You have a draft order, you have free agency, you have a salary cap, you have the whole 9 yards. So in that way, I think that Urban Meyer is smart enough to succeed in the NFL. And this idea that nobody that comes from college to the NFL succeeds is ridiculous. There's a long line of people that are in the NFL Hall of Fame that were college guys before they started coaching in the NFL.
Something you said in there made me think of, this seems way off the beaten path, hiring practices when I was at ESPN, because we would hire people that had experience. And I could just see the list of people that we would hire that would be successful. And they were just smart people, even if they had no television experience, if they were just smart people. And you could tell that, let's hire those people over this person that's marginal, mediocre, average, and just because they worked at NBC for 10 years. Okay, apply that to Urban Meyer. I think to everything you just described, he understands people. He's a master psychologist. That's one of the big reasons why he accomplished as much as he did at the collegiate level. Just master psychologist, understands people, understands organizations, what inspires people, what, identifying who's a winner, who's not a winner, who do you get out of the organization, who do you bring in, all the things that you just outlined, with obviously having a high level of football knowledge, but bringing in the people that are going to work the nuts and bolts of what the football is going to look like on the field every day. Yeah, I think he'll be successful. Am I predicting it? I guess I would tend to believe that he's going to be successful, whatever you consider successful, taking teams to playoffs.
Yeah, look, obviously the key is to win a Super Bowl, but if you look at we were talking about Bill Belichick earlier. That's what he's done great is. I mean, he's done a lot like what Dabo Swinney's done is he's surrounded himself with great coordinators and been able to keep them there for long times. And we saw so Vrabel leaves and goes to Tennessee, but and the defense has suffered since then. Yeah, I think that Urban Meyer is clearly. I don't care what you could put him in. You could put him in the Canadian Football League for all you want. He wins everywhere he goes. I see him if he stays there long term. I mean, he has a history of not staying places for a long time, Mark. If he stays there long term, i.e., for at least 4 or 5 years, I could see that him being an annual contender in the postseason in the NFL. And if Trevor Lawrence goes there, I think that even makes his chances even better.
The two things that come to mind with Belichick right off the bat are, number one, he has said it a number of times that, yeah, he was a great defensive coordinator that won Super Bowls with the New York Giants. So the football knowledge was through the roof, but that Bill Parcells was kind enough to bring him along in meetings and let him, I heard Belichick explain this not that long ago, that Parcells would bring him into conversations and bring him into situations and say, this is how this is being handled, to prep him to be a football coach, to be the head coach. And then he goes to the Cleveland Browns, and he will tell you he wasn't a very good NFL head coach the first time around, but he learned a ton, and then he took it to New England.
Yeah. Only time will tell. I'm pulling for the Jaguars if they take Lawrence. That's the only reason I'll be pulling for them. I want to see Lawrence succeed, obviously, but I'll be pulling for Urban if he's linked up with Lawrence, no doubt.
College football coast to coast, folks. Please check out Pigskin Pete on his channel if you haven't already. Pigskin Pete here on YouTube. Just look it up right now. College football coast to coast. We come your way every Monday at noon Eastern time. Appreciate the individual contributions. Also, lead us to a sponsorship. If you have any connections there, just hit me up at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. All right, Pete. Good stuff. Great to hear from you, and we will see you next week.
Yes, sir.